We're going? All right. Hey, welcome to the channel, guys. Today we are building arrows. So this is my 2021 hunting arrow. It is the Gold Tip Airstrike 300 spine. Shot a whole bunch of bear shafts this year and really liked how the black quantum from Gold Tip shot out of my bow. So I've gone with the slightly heavier airstrike. I'm using the Ethics Archery outsert adjustable system. Really like the concept of this. I've never shot with a collar before, so that's going to be new for me this year. And I'm using the OzCut Elite 3 blade, so supporting the boys back home in Australia. Anyway, let's get into it. Here we go. Alright, so let's get into the build, guys. You can see I've already started on this one and I've sanded down the end a little. I'll show you with this outsert system that's made up of a post and a collar from Ethics Archery. If I was to take this collar and try and put it on the end of one of the shafts, it just doesn't want to go on. They are the same in terms of the outside diameter on the shaft and the inside diameter of that collar. So you do have to sand them down a little bit, and then you can get those collars to go on. So pretty simple process. What I do, you'll see I've already marked this one. If I put the collar over the post, that red line lines up at the bottom of the collar, which gives me an indication as to how far I have to sand the front of the arrow shaft down. You can see there I've lined that up with the blue painter's tape, and then I've just gone ahead and sanded it. Now, I've seen all sorts of people do crazy things with power tools and whatnot, but for me, I found if I just get a bit of 240 grit sandpaper, just wrap it around right up against that painter's tape, just spin it. You can see it's taking away a bit of that paint on the outside there, and then on she goes. So the next step from there is to cut these down to size. So you can see here on the system, it talks about a 130 to 220 grain, and you've got these lines on the post itself, and they're 15 grains each. For me, I only want the 130, so I'm going to cut it right down onto that top line. Now, one thing I'd suggest, rather than putting the front of the post in and squeezing it in your vise, use the part that you're going to cut off to hold it in the vise. Alright, oh, got to go get a hacksaw. Alright, so we're back. Just got a standard hacksaw, nothing special here. You can see the last line, so we're going to get in there and cut it off in that groove. So now I'm left with a 90 grain post compared to the large one. That'll go down inside, put the collar on, and we'll be good to go. So I've gone ahead, I've cut all of those down, just where the blade on the hacksaw was up against the post. I'm just taking off a couple of burrs there, make it a bit smoother going down inside the shaft. You know, I can be a little pedantic about this sort of stuff at times, maybe to a fault, but anyway, keeps me happy, less so the wife. Anyway, let's go through, we'll weigh them all. First one comes in at 70.4, 70.2, 70 even, 70 even, 70.2, 70 even, 7.4. So I've got 0.4 of a grain difference, and I'm going to guess between these collars we'll probably get something similar. What have we got there? 60.2, 60 flat, 59.8, 60 flat, 60 flat, 60.2. So that'll work perfect. I'll go through, match those up, so we'll all end up at the same weight, and these should be close to that 130 that I'm aiming for. Yeah, so once I match these up, I'll get the 130 up front that I'm looking for. All right, we'll finish off sanding the edge, the front of each of these shafts, and then we'll get into gluing. So now that I've sanded down the ends, matched the collars, got the weights as close as I can, it's time to clean them. So just got some alcohol here, a couple of Q-tips, get in. First thing, we'll clean the inside of the shaft. So when these are getting cut at your local pro shop, obviously there's going to be a bit of fiber dust come off. You can see there, just get caught up on the inside. Now that can really impact the bonding nature of your adhesive. Obviously if there's a fine film of carbon there, if you glue your insert or your outsert system in, it could easily just come loose. And I hear that as a bit of a complaint from time to time, people talking about their outserts coming out. Look, I've used a couple of different epoxies on this particular build. I'm using the AAE epoxy. I've had no problems with epoxies before, as long as you put the right mix together. They're solid, they'll hold, and you know, I'm actually pretty surprised to hear that people's epoxy systems are coming undone. Anyway, you can see there, nice and smooth. We'll do the rest of these and then we'll get into gluing them in. All right, so we've just cleaned the last one. I'm just going to dry fit all of these one last time. We'll see how much they all weigh, see how close we got. 160.6, sorry, 360.6, 361.2, 360.6, 361. Got a bit of an outlier here, 362, 362. All right, so there's a couple that are a little bit heavier, but they're all within about a grain or just out. So anyway, it's time to get gluing. I'll pack away some of this stuff, clean up, and then we'll really get stuck into this last step, and then we'll let them sit overnight, and I'll go have a few cold ones. All right, so we're ready for the final step. We've got the two-part epoxy here from AAE. Their directions for installation of knock inserts say clean the inside of shaft with isopropyl alcohol. Done. Mix the epoxy thoroughly with a toothpick. I'll probably just cut one of these Q-tips that I use to clean the inside, cut in half and just use that. Push the insert into the shaft about 1/8 of an inch, wipe very thin film of adhesive on the outside of the insert, and this is important. While rotating the insert, push the insert into the shaft until it bottoms out on the shoulder. Wipe off excessive adhesive, set the arrow on the insert until completely cured, 24 hours. All right, well, let's get into it. We'll cut the end of these off. Whoops. Should have probably backed that out a little bit to start. It's going everywhere. Better clean that up straight away. I'll just grab a rag. Try not to get the two parts mixed together there on the end and cause them to cure on themselves. Anyway, we use the back of that? Yeah, sure. So let's just squeeze a bit in here. Try and get equal parts. Great thing about these tubes is that it's kind of foolproof. Punch a bit in there and they come out evenly. Anyway, we'll pull that back up. Clean that off as well. Get my rag, I just threw it away. There we go, good. We'll just sit that upright for a second. Take this Q-tip. Cut it in half. Mix the two-part epoxy together. Typically these go sort of a milky colour when you mix them up, when the two agents are mixing together. This one is no different. Thing I like about these two-part epoxies is they've got a longer working time. Some of the quick set bond stuff, you know, you've got 30 seconds and you just got to jam it in there and sometimes hope for the best. Whereas here you've got a bit more time to play, and you know, because it's a slow setting agent as well, you tend to get a less brittle glue at the end of the day. It's a little more forgiving. So if you hit a bone on the way through, or the scapula, less likely to cause the glue to break free. Anyway, I'm going to do it a little bit different than what it said on the back of the packet. I'm just going to coat the shaft a little bit here. Got that done. We'll get it on the insert. We'll go in. I will follow their recommendation to turn it as you go in, so I'll just pull it backwards and forwards a few times, try and coat the shaft well. Then we'll get it all the way in here. Push it down. I'll get my rag again that I've thrown away twice. Might just leave this on the bench. Clean off the shaft. That's all the way down in there. We'll set this up right. And that can stay there overnight. We'll make sure we put the right collar with the right shaft. And again, we'll go through this. Get a bit of that epoxy. Just run up and down the shaft here, go all the way to the bottom. Get in there. As we're working in, we'll just go backwards and forwards a few times. If you didn't see when I was putting these inserts in, they've got a couple of grooves for the glue to get caught in the inside. Make for a better bond, better adhesion. Alright, we'll get this one all the way down. You'll see there is a fair bit of epoxy on the outside there. Anyway, we'll just do as best a job we can to clean that out. Try not to get too much on that shaft, otherwise it might make the collar fitting a bit tight. And just speaking of that, I see some people like to glue in the collars. Like I said earlier in this video, this is my first go around. I'm actually not going to glue the collars on. I feel like there might be a need to do a bit of spin tests later on, and I want the ability to be able to rotate these collars. They've got a lip on the inside. You're probably not going to be able to see that up there, but anyway, there is a groove on the inside, maybe about 1/4 of an inch down, that sits on top of the post, and I want the ability to be able to rotate that with my broadhead so I can get the perfect spin test on it. So rather than gluing those in, that's what I'm going to do. Again, that's not probably for everyone, but for me, that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, I'll get the rest of these done, finish off, set them all up, and we'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about fletching them all up.